Mountain View is Wednesday. I'm looking forward to the verses today, as I am always with the verses of the living God. I enjoy going into them. Let's do this today. Galatians chapter 3, verse 24 says, "Wherefore the law was our schoolmaster to bring us unto Christ, that we may be justified by faith." Okay. We're going to unpack this, and it's going to take just a minute, but we're going to do this, all right? It says, "Wherefore the law was our schoolmaster." Let me tell you what this means, okay? We spend our kids, it's like, hey, we're going to learn the Ten Commandments in Sunday school. Well, we learn the Ten Commandments and we get those, and then later on as adults, we realize that the whole time we weren't going to be able to keep all these things. There's no way. That was God's standard. It was His standard, and it certainly should be worked toward, but we were going to be unable to keep every one of them perfectly. When God created them, He wanted us to do as many of them as possible. Well, all of them. He had command that we do all of them or not do. Thou shalt not. Thou shalt not. Here's the thing. And here's the thing. As soon as we see that sign, see, there's a schoolmaster. There's a schoolmaster. See, with a ruler right over the hand. Wow, you got to get this. You got to do this. And here's listen to me. Listen to me carefully now. Every one of these commandments is so important. It's so beautiful because they keep us. Here we are in America. We got 40,000 laws to keep the 10 commandments. Okay, and the whole thing is just follow those commandments and loving one another. He says, loving God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength, and loving each other as yourself sums up all of it. But that's another lesson. I don't want to get all sidetracked. The law was our schoolmaster. We realized we could not keep it all. We were to strive for it. We were to strive for it and live for it. Because listen, you say, well, Ryan, are you saying the law doesn't matter? No, look. What Jesus says, John chapter 14, verse 15 says, "If you love me, you will obey my commandments." If you love me, you'll obey my commandments. Well, okay then. If that's the case, then we ought to be doing everything we can to live for Christ and be more and more like Jesus. It doesn't let us do whatever we want. Grace is not about doing whatever you want. Grace is about you being finally able to do what Christ wants you to do. He comes in and He gives us something we don't deserve. He gives us that favor that we don't deserve, and He shows mercy on us and doesn't do things that we do deserve, which is that awful punishment. Jesus died on the cross for us to fulfill the law. We could not fulfill it. And the human beings were sacrificing animals as well, where it had been revealed to them, sacrificing animals to get right with the Lord, because He had said, this is what has to happen here. There has to be the shedding of blood. There has to be this. And listen, we were getting that wrong. We gotten to the point where, hey, I'm just going to sacrifice an animal. I can do whatever I want to as long as I can sacrifice these animals. Man, that's some kind of way to look at it. But man, there's so many people who think of grace as cheap grace. They want the cross with no repentance. I mean, they want to be saved they want salvation with no repentance. And they want that comfortable cross. They want the cushioned cross. They want that, listen, these seats are comfortable. I can sit right here and enjoy myself. They want all that. They want cheap grace. And that ain't what happened. Jesus had to die on the cross for us in order to show us He would fulfill that law. The law had been broken by us. Someone had to pay the price. And Jesus was the one to pay the price. It was our schoolmaster, though, and it was a mirror. We'd look at that thing, look. I go in there and I look in the mirror now and I say to myself, my goodness gracious, I sure look a little bit better with a big old full head of hair. And then I remember what I looked like when I had a full head of hair, and I'm like, man, I don't know if I'd look better than I do right now or not. Ha! But look, looking in the mirror, we can see what's going on. You walk into a restaurant bathroom, man. You're washing your hands and stuff. You're looking, making sure you ain't got a boogie in your nose, whatever like that, and you're just making sure everything's cleaned up. Look, when we look into the law and what God requires of us, we realize, man, there's some things I need to work on. So it's our schoolmaster. It's teaching us. But guess what? Everywhere we fail, Jesus has already made up for. Okay? Doesn't give you a license to do what you want to do. It ought to be just celebration that Jesus has made me right with God. Otherwise, I could never make it into heaven. Unless we're an old sacrificial system from way back when. But now that Jesus has died on the cross, He has taken care of all of that. It says, "Wherefore the law was our schoolmaster to bring us unto Christ, that we are to be justified by faith." The law isn't going to justify us because we've broken it. We've broken it. All those little laws. I remember reading a story from Cambridge University years ago. That this happened. Actually, I read about it recently, but it happened years ago. But there were some students that were taking an exam, and as they were taking right before they took the exam, one cocky little kid that was in there to eventually go to law school said, "Hey, I've been reading all the old rules and laws here, and the only way we can take this test is if we have cake and we have ale. If we have cake and we have ale." And the professor, "What are you talking about?" So he showed this obscure rule from way back when. They go to show that. It says, sure enough, right before you take the test, the students should be provided cake and ale. So the only thing the professor was like, okay, fine, whatever. This is a class on law, so I'm just going to, I'll go get you something. So the closest thing he thought was a burger and a Coke, and he brings that back to the guy, and he sits it down in front of him and he eats. Well, the only way, but this is what he said. He brought it back to him. Later on, the council at the school brings the student in. And says, we're going to have to deduct your grade. We're going to have to deduct your grade. You're going to make a whole lot worse in this class than you thought. He said, what are you talking about? Why are you saying that? Well, said, didn't you get the cake and ale? And he said, yeah, I did get the cake and ale, but that's in the rule book. You shouldn't be mad at me. I said, no, we're fine with that. But also, if you read on down, it says the only way you can take the actual exam is if you're wearing a sword. And he's like, oh my goodness gracious, you got to be kidding me. See, you get caught up in all those rules and regulations and do this and do that, don't do this and don't do that. Folks, I'm telling you, it's all summed up in love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. That means if you love Him, what did John 14 say? It said, you'll do my commandments. Okay, that means you're trying and striving to be more like Jesus. You're not going to be perfect, you're not, but you are striving to be more like Jesus. You are striving to be more like Jesus. And that proves that you love Him. And loving each other as Christians, that proves that you love Him. He says, they will know you by your love for one another. And they'll know who you are and whose you are. Folks, here's the thing. Following Him, following the commands, showing that you're there, showing that the law doesn't have control over you, but that Jesus has control over you. And as a result of that, you are following His commands. As best as a child knows how, you are following Him closely and living closely to Him. What a wonderful, wonderful thing to know and believe. Love you guys. Bye-bye.